So I've had the chance of working with multiple 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs. So these are people doing millions, if not tens of millions of dollars every single year through their companies. And what I've noticed is that there's a ton of key differences between these people and others who are just starting out early on in their business career. And the key differences, I guess, are what makes them so successful in the first place, right? To even get to the point where they're making millions every single year, and in some cases every single month. So by having these businesses, one, as clients, but two, also as mentors, what I wanted to do was just share some of the lessons that I've learned that you can hopefully take away and see results instantly in your business and in life in general. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Ethan Welby. I'm the founder of Agency Growth Partner, and what we do is we partner with marketing agencies to help them build out client acquisition machines and scale up the agency. And a ton of our clients right now are 7-figure marketing agency owners, 8-figure marketing agency owners too, and this is where a lot of the lessons come from. So the first key lesson that I learned from working with one 7-figure marketing agency is the power of speed, right? So there was one day where I was on Slack, the messaging platform, talking to a client, and we were sorting out this one issue with their account, right? So this was a Friday, it's the end of the week. Most people are just getting off work and then, shutting down for the weekend, right? So we were sorting out the issue throughout the day, and then everything was sorted by the evening. And then what happened is I went out for the night, and then at 1 a.m. I get this message from the client. I'm like, why is this guy still awake? Like, when does he even sleep? And he's asking about some question about the account, and obviously I answered it straight away. Then I put the phone away, and then the next morning I had to be somewhere pretty early. So I was up at around 7 a.m. And again, I get another message from that client. And at this point, I'm thinking, did this guy even sleep? It felt like he's been awake for 24 hours straight. So I asked him, like, do you sleep? Why are you replying at these times in the day? And what he said was so profound in its simplicity, because all he said was he doesn't want to hold the project up. He wants things to move quickly. He understood that because a lot of the projects were flowing through him, if he didn't reply, if he wasn't online, then the projects wouldn't move forward because they would just stop at him if he's, let's say, sleeping or doing something else. So he made sure while this was being sorted out that he was available this entire time so that projects could just flow through. And when I was thinking about this, I realized that if he wasn't awake at this time, the project or the account issue only would have been solved by Monday or even Tuesday the next week. So him being awake at this time on the Friday allowed us to get everything done that day, get it back up on Saturday, and run on Sunday, and run on Monday, and get the results from those 3 days. If he just waited like a normal person, was like, okay, I'll get to this on Monday. If he just waited, he would have missed 3 days of making money in that period. So after that, every single time frame that I look at is that if I'm wasting time, if I don't do this now, the entire period between the time that I'm putting it off and the time that I actually do it is wasted time. It's wasted opportunity that money could be made during that period, problems could be solved, issues could be resolved. So now I just want to do everything in the moment right now because I know that it'll pay off in the long term. Right, so the second lesson that I learned was to focus on systems over everything else. Right, so a belief that I had when coming into business was that you would hire someone and this person would build the system. Right, so if you had a problem, you would hire someone and then they would solve the problem for you. Right, so let's say you weren't able to get bookings. You would hire someone in an entry-level role and they would get bookings for you. They would figure it out, they would do it, and then they'd come back to you and you'd be happy. But what I learned from a mentor of mine is that that's the wrong way of doing it. You should actually focus on building the system first and then putting someone in to do it. Because if you can't figure it out and you are an 8-figure business owner and you hire someone in an entry-level role who just got out of high school, they're most likely not going to figure it out. Because if they knew how to book meetings and sign clients, they'd most likely have their own business. So you as the founder, it's your role when being under $1 million per year in revenue. It's your expectation to figure things out and then build a system and then put someone else into the system, as opposed to hiring someone to figure everything out for you. So what my mentor did was he would build out systems to the T, right? Every single point was accounted for. Click this button, scroll down here, click this button, and it was still documented with a video as well going over it in even more detail. And by doing that, he could literally put a 10-year-old child into the system and he'd be able to follow it. And what I learned from that is that the more clarity you have in building the system, the more defined, the more detailed it is, the less room there is for any mistakes to take place. So let's say you have a system to that degree and you're not getting the outcome that you want, whether that's booked meetings, whether that's sales. You don't need to look at the person. You just need to ask, is the person following the system? Yes or no? If they are, then it's a system problem and you have to solve it. And that just removes so many variables, so much complexity, because now you don't have to ask, okay, is his idea good? Is he a good person? Can I trust him? Is it the system thing? Is it this? Is it this? It's like, no, it's just the system, right? Is he doing it? Yes or no? Okay, the system's the problem. So now whenever I build a system, whenever I have an operation, it's purely based on what needs to be done and then finding someone to put them into the role. The third lesson I learned was to never tolerate a small problem, because these problems become big over time. So we onboarded a new client, and what we typically do is whenever they come on board, we get everything ready in terms of the marketing, in terms of the admin setup, all that stuff. And then we send over the marketing materials for review before launch. This is just so we have the approval from the client before it goes live. And then this is what we use to book meetings and, sign the clients from there. So we sent the assets for review. We sent the scripts for review. And the way they reviewed it was crazy. They looked through every single word, every single case study, every single space between the words, just to see if there's any sort of mistake that is there. At first I thought, okay, this is unnecessary. There's no need to look through the script for 5 hours, just figuring out if there's like a tiny issue, a tiny, punctuation thing. But what I saw from this is just that the amount of detail that these millionaires take, or these successful people take in the small things, reflects throughout the entire company. Because if you ignore a mistake in your outreach script, you'll probably also ignore a mistake in your accounting. And you'll probably also ignore a mistake, in your team or in your hiring or any sort of process that you might have. So the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So before I thought it was completely unnecessary, but then I understood the value of it. Because let's say a team member gets upset and they say something rude to another member. If you just ignore that, sweep it under the rug, say it's going to be resolved, then it rarely ever gets resolved on its own. Because this one small thing is an indication of something much bigger that can happen if you leave it to grow. So at first it might just be a small argument, then over time they keep doing it, and they start sabotaging each other's work, and they start doing all these things, and then it becomes a massive issue 3 months down the line. So ideally what you want to do is destroy any small problem at the start, and then by doing that it never allows a bigger problem to come out of it. And the fourth lesson that I learned was about getting straight to the point. So earlier on when I was running the business, I was so adamant on getting people onto calls all the time to convey information on, speaking to them about things, until we signed this one client. And this client almost never wanted to take a call. At first I thought, oh, this is a nightmare client. He doesn't actually want to work with us. He's not going to do this stuff. I doubt he's going to do the onboarding. He's going to take long to do all this stuff because he doesn't want to get onto a call. He doesn't want to speak to me. But what I realized is that he got everything done faster than any other client, whether this was onboarding information, making a change, reviewing the scripts, doing anything. He did it faster than everyone else. And when I asked him why he didn't want to get onto calls, why he was so adamant on only, getting reports via message, only, speaking via voice notes, things like this, he explained how much he values time. By getting onto a call, when something could have just been sent via a message, you're essentially wasting time. Because now you have to allocate 30 minutes to this entire thing that usually would only take like 7 minutes. So that's 23 minutes of wasted time. So if we just sent everything via message, everything would have been done so much faster. And that's why he was able to get everything else done faster, because he wasn't wasting time on idle conversation or useless calls and things like that. So the lesson I learned from this was to value time and value attention more than anything else. So not getting onto useless calls. And if something can be said, say it via text, or say it via voice note, as opposed to scheduling some whole meeting for it. And the last lesson that I learned was that these successful clients, these millionaire clients, they were the most willing to change, right? What I found is when I'm working with smaller clients, smaller agencies, they are so tied to their beliefs, they're so tied to what they're currently doing, that even when an expert gives them advice, whether that's me, whether that's anyone else, they don't change. And it's ironic because if they were to change, they would get the outcome that they want. But because they're not willing to change, they don't get the outcome. So what I've found is that with the most successful clients, they're the most willing to change, right? They are making tens of millions per year, but they're asking for my feedback on, how they can optimize their LinkedIn profile. The smallest things, but they are so willing to change. As soon as they get the advice, they implement it same day, even same hour, right? We would get onto calls and we'd talk about it, we'd discuss what they could do. By the next call, by the next day, they were asking for feedback if what they did was right. And what I found is that these successful people, they are where they are because they understand the value of learning and especially implementing what they learn. Because if they did the same thing that they always did, they would just get the same outcome that they always had. So by them implementing, they're expecting new outcomes. And what happens is they get it because they change, because they improve, and that's why they are where they are. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did get any value from it, like the video, subscribe for more, and I will talk to you in the next one.